Hello teacups, what's brewing? I didn't expect to be with you today. I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible. A lot's gone on, I'm sure you're all aware, but a lot's gone on. And with Chantal's latest confession, I felt like it was something that I wanted to touch upon. I didn't just want to ignore this, but there's no way I'm going to be reacting to whenever her next live is, because I'm going to be traveling. It's currently nearly 7 p.m. I'm traveling tomorrow and I am not ready. I'm not packed. I'm not ready to leave. So I don't have time to edit down, but even if I did, this wasn't the kind of information I would want to do as a straight react. She gets very emotional during it. You can think what you want of her motivations, of her sincerity, of the somewhat suspicious timing with whatever's going on with ALR and the suspicions there and the talk there it's generating, versus her coming on right now to tell us this thing, which we can talk about in a minute. But whatever you think about her, I felt quite bad for Foodie in this, and maybe it's pure emotional manipulation, maybe I've just grown a feeling, but I felt bad for her, and so straight reacting didn't feel very good and I didn't really want to do it. So that being said, let's just recap a couple of the points that she got into in this live and just discuss a few thoughts, and then I'll probably just leave it there for now. I'm sorry this is a bit rushed. I could have just left it, but it would feel like quite a hole in her narrative if I hadn't at least touched upon it. About 20 minutes into her first dinner live stream, I wanted to discuss the second one as well. She got very upset and she confessed to her audience that she had been doing cocaine quite regularly. And obviously that's a conversation that's been going on in the community. There's been a lot of suspicion. There's been a lot of people saying she's showing a lot of signs of cocaine use, and she's been denying it. She's been denying seeing Dom, using harder drugs. There's been a lot of lying. So I get that there's a lot of doubt in her audience, but she was quite upset. And I'm the kind of person that cries at the news. I imagine what that must be like to go through, and I get teary. So I found this quite hard, even though she's not a likable person, and if half of what she was saying was true, it was very easy to see her stepping into this as an addiction. It's not really the point of the emotion here. You know, she said she's been doing it herself. Believe that or don't, it's up to you. But that she's been doing it herself for, she didn't quite say the time, but someone I think at some point said a month. And she was like, not a month. So at least the last few weeks. We have seen some extreme weight loss from her. That appears to correlate with the drug use. So we can kind of get a timeline from there. But she's also got the Ozempic on it. It's not clear, and she doesn't clarify really. But long enough that she's now very concerned. I'm wondering, like, it is definitely a change to say, oh, I did it as a party thing. And when I was hanging out with Dom, versus I did it myself. And if Dom isn't supplying this, which is a big old if, but if he isn't supplying it, where is she getting it? How does she know random drug dealers? Like, she doesn't seem to have that many friends. I don't think Rena's dealing. Like, how would she know the people to get this if not through Dom? I don't have an answer to that question. Either she's lying about one thing or something else is going on. I don't know. But she appears to have been speaking to BB. I'd like to take a moment to give BB just some credit, because I'm 100% here saying free BB, but once again, he seems to have proven himself to be pretty much one of the few decent humans she's got in her life. Because he doesn't need to deal with this shit. He doesn't need to be on the other end of the phone listening to her, and he's supporting her. And even better seems the wrong word, but not only is he supporting her, later in the live, she said he was the one who said the word addict, because she's been in denial and she's been pretending, and she's not one for facing hard truths, medically speaking, or anything else speaking in general. So when she's kind of looking, oh, I could possibly be, and he's like, nah, hun, that's addiction. That's not maybe, you're an addict. And that's quite shocking for her to hear, I think, but I can't think of another person that we're aware of in her life who would be willing to have that conversation with her. So I'm pretty glad somebody did, and BB's been doing all right there. She also said, interestingly, Pete's doesn't know. So she claims, there's some confusion about this, she claimed that BB was the only one who knew, and Pete's didn't, her family didn't. Now, there appeared to be like a message exchange at some point in the live, if it was this one or the next one, and I think she came back, if I'm remembering correctly, she came back and then she was like, I text my mom and I said either from one of her, oh, maybe that was it. Maybe she muted for a bit and then came back. But at some point her mom was informed, and she texted, and then we were getting a lot of notifications on the filming phone, apparently from a mom who was angry that she had been lied to and obviously very concerned for her. And she claimed one of the reasons she was saying it now was because it would force her to go and do something, that it would set an expectation. Now, I hope if she's going to share it, which I don't think she should have done, but if she was going to share it and leave it up, which she has done, that it would be that moment of, okay, and this is it. And this is why I go and do the things I need to do. But we've seen her get to that moment of realization before in many things. If you could call food less serious, I suppose. So hopefully this is just scary enough. But she's come on here before and said, I understand it's killing me and I don't want to die. And about food. And I don't know if we're going to see different behavior from her this time, which is why I'm so interested to see whatever comes next. Because if it's not, I have spoken to XYZ, or my mom has come and she's going with me, or something more concrete, then I'm going to research it. It's never going to happen. And I would like to think, given how serious this situation is, that she wouldn't get to that point because it's so serious. But we've seen her get to serious points before and then back off as if it's never happened and be like, no, I can deal with it myself. And she has a lot of points in this live where her language is, well, do I need to go? I need to go to the doctor. Do I need to go to the doctor? Do I have to go to a program? She's still very embarrassed at the idea of admitting this in real life because the internet doesn't count. The internet isn't real. It's not with her in the room. And so she's, even though she claims she understands she needs to see a doctor, she needs to ask these questions, she doesn't seem to want to do a lot in terms of actually speaking to professionals. Now, she's a lot more open to the idea in this. She does mention I need to look for a program. But again, this planning stage often leads nowhere. So I'd want something more concrete from her before she convinces herself she can deal with it herself. She was using language like, can I nip it in the bud, or do I have to do a program? Because she really doesn't want to do a program. She doesn't want to do that kind of work. And that's one of the reasons she's always been very resistant to therapy. She doesn't like it. And so she's a bit embarrassed. She's resistant to the idea of talking about her feelings in general when it's in real life. And this is kind of extending to this conversation as well. Let's see. What did I write there? She mentioned that she'd rather be addicted to this than food, even upset the way she was, because she was still upset when she was saying this. She was like, I can't go back to food. I'd rather do this than food. And I know that's fucked up, but I'd rather do this than food. And that's a lot. They're damaging in very different ways. But I know we say therapy a lot on this channel. There is a conversation to be had there, especially as at some point she also said, no matter where I've been in my life, I'm always had to be addicted to something. And cross addiction, as we've discussed on this channel, is a serious thing with her. And it's not a coincidence that the moment she took an Ozempic and couldn't eat, she went on to the THC. We've seen her shuffle addiction over into other areas very, very quickly. And what she gets from food, she then gets from THC, she then gets from cocaine, she gets from shopping, she gets from sex, she gets from a whole host of other places. Recently, she mentioned gambling, online gambling. And man, is that a terrible idea. And she, at the time, she's like, no, I'm not addicted. Because people will, of course, grab onto any crumb and be like, gambling addict. But I just want to say that the danger of that is also clear and present and upfront, because it's so easy, and we've seen her transfer addiction so quickly, that there's no reason to think she wouldn't do the same in gambling. And would it physically hurt her? No. But financially, could it really screw her up? Yes. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And again, it's not, I don't want to say it's not her fault. It's not an addict's fault they're addicted, but she does have help available, and I want to see her access it. Not just think about it, not just plan it, but access it. Because she clearly can't do this alone. And when one thing gets taken away, she shuffles into the next. And I could see the gambling getting out of hand really quickly. She's only done it a couple of times. A couple of times does not an addict make. But there's a lot of potential there for something really negative. And frankly, she's got enough in her life. She doesn't need to be developing other habits. She does say she's going to get help. We'll see. We'll see. I would like to say, though, in terms of when the conversation about Dom was really going on and people were saying he's a terrible influence on you, he's making you do lots of different things, you're being manipulated. She really didn't like it. She didn't like the idea that she could be manipulated, even though clearly she can be. And one of the talking points she then introduced was, no, I've done this substance recreationally before, throughout my life. And I didn't think that was true at the time, and I don't think it's true now. Because I believe she did it maybe once when she was young, maybe once, and then it got reintroduced in the current timeline. Because if she had been doing it throughout her life, she would be much further into her addiction, visibly further into her addiction, I believe. Because she doesn't have a moderation to her life. She's all or nothing. And she has also said, in terms of her medication, she's been taking her antidepressant and she's been taking her Ozempic and she's been taking nothing else. So all that time when she was like, oh, I need to go get this, I need to go get that, she hasn't been on her blood thinners, she said, for months. And I was not exactly confused about this, but I had some questions about this, because the amount of medication she's on, she's got to have regular checkups. So is she just not going to the checkups? Or is she just straight up lying to the doc when she goes to the checkups? Because I haven't taken it in months versus I'm not going and they think I'm taking it. Like, how active is her role in that? I don't know. But man, what a stupid fucking thing to do. Like, let's take drugs out of the conversation for the moment. But man, what a stupid fucking thing to do. Take your medication. Take your medication. If you can take coke and meth, you can take the medication stopping you from stroking out. Take your medication. It was just ridiculous to me. You can take all this other stuff that you really shouldn't be taking, but not any of the stuff your doctor has actually told you, no, you need to live. Her chat was telling her, go, like, log off. There was a mixture. There's always a mixture in her chat. The chat was saying, like, log off and do this now. Go and check with someone now. Make an appointment now. Get off live. Live is not your priority right now. And I don't understand why it was her priority. She did say she didn't want to be alone. Which, again, great talking point for a therapist. Therapist is maybe a longer term solution to this, but she didn't want to be alone. Now, there is a possibility there. She's like, if I get off live, I'll use, and I don't want to use. But she started, and read the room. She started then eating edibles and smoking some of her pre-rolls on stream. And I'm like, this is the conversation we're having, and this is what you're doing. Are you serious? She did say that the edibles help to calm her down when she's too high and too jittery and too kind of up there on the other things, which seems like a pretty dangerous game to play in terms of let's balance the drugs. But apparently it can help. I think going to see a doctor would probably be a better choice. A licensed therapist super chatted her and said, go to detox, stop edibles, but don't detox alone. Great advice. Like, there's so many things you could be doing that wouldn't be sitting on stream right now. It's unbelievable. There's so many things. Smokey Steve popped into the super chat. I'm actually really interested in his perspective on this, because as somebody who's had addiction issues and as somebody who's been through inpatient and just his life experience, I think would make for a very interesting perspective on this live. And so I'm hoping he uploads one. I know usually, I'm not sure where I am in the time zones, but usually it's not this time of the week. It's at the weekend, but hopefully he does a special episode or something, because I'm going to need something to watch and I'd like his perspective on it, both him and Mark. She said something about it was a lot to tell people, no one trusts you after that. I think it is a lot to put the label of addict on yourself. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes with that, but also, honey, no one trusts you anyway. No one trusts you anyway. That is the relationship you have with your audience. So there was a little bit of, look at me, I'm the victim, that I didn't appreciate. Also, I can't remember if it was this live or the second live, when someone came in, she was like, how dare you call me a junkie? Or she got very annoyed by somebody using that language. And she had been giggling about the phrase chunky junkie that someone had said to her for days. I feel like she'd been giggling about that recently. She had no problem with it then. And actually, really interestingly, on Twitter, it was retweeted by Jasmine, I think. I think it was originally Life as Free Spirit. She had, I couldn't copy it, otherwise I was going to insert it here, but she had a clip from a previous live stream that was some point in the last 2 months, where she was going, we don't do coke, we did it once, I'm not sitting here saying I can't control it and I'm shaking and I can't do this and I'm spending all my money. And she got into it, and now she's sitting here doing exactly that. So on one hand, I think addiction is scary. She was upset, and that there's a certain amount of human sympathy that goes with that. I don't want any human being to go through that. But on the other, this is quite an about face from her attitude quite recently. So maybe focus less on berating your chat for their language and more on maybe what you can do to help yourself. I think that's probably good advice in general. She said she thinks she said, I definitely have enough support, even though she'd also just said BB was the only one who knew. I think she meant now I've told my chat. That's terrible. There were some people in the chat that were offering her just like, we're here for you, and no, please get help, and sensible advice. But as always, there's a mixture in her chat, and I do not think it's a good source of actual support. I do not think she should rely on them. Someone in her chat did say, look, said a similar thing, was like, this is a professional job, we are not the people for this. And I'd really like her just to get offline, and it does need to happen, or needed to happen that night, so I hope it did. She said she spent $1,000, that she had 7 grams. Which, knowing nothing about cocaine, seems like a lot to be doing by yourself in your room, but any seems like a lot to be doing by yourself in your room, quite frankly. There was some confusion with the amount. At one point, I think she said she did a kilo, which I was like, I don't know anything about drugs, but that don't seem right. And I actually think it was some combination of the dude that asked was called Florida Kilos, and a kilo is 1,000 grams. And I think there was just a misfiring of neurons in the brain where she started mixing up those terms. So $1,000 became 1,000 grams, became a kilo, which was Florida Kilos. And sometimes you just brain fart like that. You do. And it's like, that doesn't make sense at all. But she corrected it later. She's got 7 grams. She spent $1,000. Who was it? DC Media Girl put up on Twitter that a gram costs $120. I'll have to take a word on it because I don't know fuck about it. And but that would mathematically kind of be there. So I'm guessing the 7 grams was about correct. There was more. She went on for longer. She then ended the stream and she came back and had a very normal stream, which I did not appreciate. I didn't get to watch all of that, just because I didn't have the patience, and it was about 3 a.m. I was like, no, not right now. But I didn't like the way she took a break for about half an hour and then came back, and apparently everything was like, she'd in that short period of time between lives, she had talked to her mom, she had talked to Pete, she had ordered food, and she had done some research in, like, some Googling into places she could go for treatment. And I was like, really? Because it took you how long to check your email? People are still blocked on your channel. You did all of that in the break? It sounded a little bit suspect to me. But apparently she did all things, and people know. And from what I could gather from her mom is concerned and kind of angry, and just, there's a lot. But on the other hand, that could be a good thing, simply because it means she's not just relying on her own force to do something. Not necessarily in support, but in sense of she can't just sweep it under the rug now, because it's a known fact with her family, which is what she usually tries to hide. How much her mother can do in terms of active intervention, or if intervention is not the right word, active, let's say, support, in terms of getting her to places and insisting she goes for her own sake, I don't know. Chantal is very resistant, but this is a serious stage in her life. So who knows how she'll react, or if she'll just go back into a normal, I do what I want, I don't know. A lot went on. I'm sure there are talking points I've missed. I know there were things I wanted to say, but yeah, that second stream didn't sit right with me, because she seemed very much back to normal. And the danger that gives is, well, I told everybody now. You know when you get caught in a lie, and it sucks to have the argument, but you kind of feel relieved that you're not having to lie anymore, like it's out there. But once it's out there, it kind of makes you untouchable. Well, I admitted to that already. No, well, you already talked about that. No, okay, it's done now, it's behind us. When it's going to be something she has to deal with moving forward. And she does, because, you know, she does, she's elite, she tries to curate her own history. She does tend to lean towards that under normal circumstances, which let's call these extraordinary, shall we? These are more extraordinary circumstances than that. But she has a tendency to kind of sweep things under the rug and be like, no, I never said that. No, that never happened. No, you're putting words into my mouth. When there is evidence that she said those things, and that it's not being twisted. So I don't know where she's going to go from here. I'm very interested. I booked a hotel in the Dubai airport, so I wouldn't have to wander it for the many, many hours of my connection. So I should have Wi-Fi and may be able to watch her next update, which would be interesting. But other than that, I'm not sure what she's going to do next. Is she just going to do what she always does with her diets and her health and falter back and be like, no, I think I can deal with it myself? No, I've got a plan that's it's not traditional, but I think I know what works for me. And that horse shit, I'm not here for that. She needs a professional, and she needs one stat. An honest conversation with a doctor over what she's doing would be number one, just to check how badly she's fucked over her body, because she had a lot of issues before, and I can't imagine she's made any of them better. Actually getting therapy, instead of saying, oh, I don't think I need it, I don't like it. Like getting into a program for any kind of addiction at this point, because I think it was Steve at one point who said she's addicted to being addicted, or came up with the idea of I think he was explaining different types of addiction. He said sometimes people are just addicted to being addicted. I might be misquoting him, apologies if I am. But I feel like that. Whatever hole this is, whatever trauma this is, whatever issues she has that leads her to any of these points, leads her to kind of all of these points. So if she doesn't address that, she's going to find it very difficult to change any of those behaviors. And if she's so in despair of food with how big she was getting, and it makes sense that having lost some weight, however unhealthily, and realized that how much better life was when she was a lower weight, she'd now be terrified of regaining it. But this is not any way forward. This is a way maybe down into the ground, but it's not any way forward. And I really, really, really hope, don't necessarily believe, but I hope this is the point where they're like, okay, no, something needs to be done, and something will be done. However successful she is, than this just being swept under the rug again, because there's only so many rugs and she's gonna end up dying if she doesn't fix it, and I don't want to see that. I know she's a very unlikable person, but I don't want to see anybody do that. And whether she's capable of changing her life, whether she's capable of accessing the things that might enable her to change her life, I don't know. I'm talking more mental capability than availability, because she's got a lot of stuff available. I don't know if she's capable of change, but I'd like to believe everyone is to a point, and it's so much better when you do. Please, please, please get help. Is basically everything I was saying as she was doing this. I was sitting there like, what are you? And maybe now her family is involved, it'll lead to more of a push. Maybe now BB is a good, not necessarily for him, but for her, is a good source of comfort, because he's far enough away from the day-to-day that she feels more comfortable talking to him, but close enough that he can kind of see through some of her bullshit, and close enough that his opinion, his support matters to her. I'd like to see more of that in her life than the false support system she thinks she has in her chat. And Pete, who I'm sure is concerned for his friend, but I'm sure is not going to turn that into any kind of push to help her, because that's not his personality. He doesn't have that in him to confront a problem that is likely to explode back up in his face. So that's where we are. I'm very, very concerned, but any other talking points, I'm sure people are going to be picking over this live for a long time. I'm sure people have a lot of different perspectives on this. Some of them will be more sympathetic than others. Some of them will be a mixture. I've got very mixed feelings about it. I feel like a bit of a shithead to sit here doubting someone going through something emotional, but we've been here before, and she's got very little credibility with her audience. So you have to question it, because even recently she proved she was lying to her audience. So I feel horrible for doing that, but at the same time, if it's true, I would like her to get help, and I'd like her to get better. So I'll leave you there, and I will see you hopefully next time from Saudi. All right, everybody, thank you. Bye-bye.